I have help, but not professional, very unprofessional. It comes with abuses. I call them friends. Hello and welcome to another episode of Kuch Kartey Bro podcast. And today we have with us Aathira here.
Hi.
Okay. So Aathira is somebody who is very outdoorsy, loves cooking, writes poetry, guys. Is very interested into poetry.
Yes.
But these are none of the reasons why she is here with us right now.
Yeah.
So Athira is also a therapist, which is why we have her as a guest today. And we look forward to having some really good conversations regarding mental health, regarding life in general also, and a lot of banter that might go in the
Yeah.
process. So how are you, Athira? Tell me something about yourself.
Oh,
This
about
is an interview
myself.
process.
Thank you for having me, Pratik, Sajesh, and everybody.
Mhm.
I thank you for that kind intro also.
So Adira, tell me, how does it feel like to be a part of the India's most famous podcast right now? Kuch Kartey Bro.
It feels great. It's an honor to be here. This is
Hey,
my first. This is my first video podcast, and
Yeah.
thank you for making me very comfortable here. It's challenging. There's a slight shiver in my voice
Yes.
that I'm trying to be okay with.
Yes.
But I think it's fun. I like to try out new things every once in a while. So this is one of them. For I think, let's consider it for these 15 days. This is the new thing that I'm trying.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. She's clearly having a video podcast for the first time, and it is so amazing to watch because we've been there. I mean, I'll be very honest. Like when I was doing the first shoot ever, Sajesh and Gaurav, who also used to be with us, used to be very annoyed at me for the fact that I would always speak like this.
I
Hey,
get that.
अरे यार, तेको मालूम है क्या हो रहा है? Like I used to, and then eventually I learned that all this masti only causes Sajesh a lot of thrust when he's editing, and a lot of abuse that I get afterwards. So I'm sure through the whole process of this podcast and this episode, you'll be much more comfortable and you'll be ready for a lot more video podcasts in the future. But so I'll be honest with you. I've always thought about seeking therapy myself. Okay, always thought that I need some sort of professional help. I have help, but not professional, very unprofessional. It comes with abuses. I call them friends. But but I always wanted to have some sort of a professional help, and this is my first interaction probably with a therapist, and I'm really excited for it. So I just want to understand, like, does it happen that when you're out in a social setting with people and friends, and you meet people and they don't know you're a therapist, and they talk about probably wanting therapy or cursing the process of therapy, or sticking to stigmas that how people stereotype, why you're taking therapy? Have you ever seen people behave like that?
Oh Lord.
And how do you deal with that?
So at the beginning it was very tough for me to not take it personally when people are talking in an uninformed way, let me put it that way. It's not, I don't want to put it under the labels of talking ill about the profession or anything of that sort. But at the start it was very challenging because I would take it like mere bare mein bura bola, like mere profession ke bare mein bura bola. But with time I think I have learned to kind of separate the two out and be more empathetic towards the person because they are trying to understand what therapy is about, how it is like to get professional help. So as you said, we have support systems if we are lucky enough, but we have friends, we have family, we have other sources through which we can get support and care and love. But the professional support that we get is very different, especially for mental health. There are multiple sources of help that we can have that feel therapeutic in nature, like, having a warm cup of tea on a cold and chilly day. Or being outdoors in nature or playing with pets. These can be therapeutic in nature, but these are not therapy. Okay, so therapy for mental health would mean that you first seek it from a qualified professional who knows what they are talking about, who has been trained in various things in psychology, mental health, understanding the societal norms or biases in much more depth. How this is important is that, see, in our educational system at our homes, we are not given this sort of explanations or support for everything about life. You know, very often if we ask a question as a young child, I'll be questioned or I'll be shunned. You know, just be quiet.
Desi parents 101.
Yeah, and there's a lot of in our cultural context, especially physical disciplining is very very present. Children are beaten up by parents, teachers, everybody. So there's a
I
lot.
feel it is very unfair that kids these days don't get beaten up enough as we got beaten up.
That's true.
It's just bad. Like, then nobody defended us back then.
I would
Yeah.
say, okay, are you saying from your perspective?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
unfair.
like-
That's true.
Yeah.
But I think it's in a way that it's very good that they are getting to
Yeah,
experience.
in a way, but I was not on that way. So probably.
That's true.
Sorry for.
No. But that's very important. I'm glad that parents in today's day and time are able to see why it's important to not harm a child in any way possible. I wouldn't say it's completely out yet, but people still do. Physical disciplining is still quite present. But abhi people are more aware about how to, I wouldn't say raise a child, but they are able to be more, a little more mindful than they used to be, their parents used to be. So that's a good change that we are seeing.
But do
Yeah.
you think like these changes are still very respective to people who are well-to-do? I mean, who are educated themselves and have the means to, sort of.
Yeah, it does
So,
matter.
So do you think that if we go 10, 20 years back, probably everybody, I mean, there were very little people who, I mean, there is progress, no doubt.
Yeah.
But do you think that gap now that exists is very high? Like,
Hmm.
as in now there are set of people who can afford this, have that education and understand the importance of that.
Yeah.
And then there is a huge gap in their socio-economic space, and then the next set comes in.
Yeah, that's true. So it's good that you brought this up, because when we talk about mental health and good parenting and all of this, it's we can't take the whole societal aspect, the socio-economic factors, the political aspect, everything out of the context, because a context would mean you take all of these into consideration when we are talking about a particular thing like mental health, for
Absolutely.
example. So when we talk about parenting as well, the same thing applies. Yes, education makes a difference in how they are rearing their children, how they are nurturing the children. It's not just about providing for the child, like education, meals, clothing, shelter. It's also about nurturing would mean that you are able to emotionally support the child's growth, intellectually provide support, or spiritually provide support for the child, not just religiously by asking the child to focus on, just praying for the sake of it, but how to take religion to the self-care perspective. How having that quiet time where it is just you talking to a source probably that's powerful than you are, how that helps in emotional regulation. All of that is very important. I don't see if of course there is change happening, but I don't know how significantly it's happening, because I think the change can only significantly happen if people understand their responsibility as parents. It's not just about making sure that you are able to afford the child's school fees. It's so much more than that, right? So I to personally believe that there should be some sort of parenting license before people get, even conceive a
Consider,
child. So that's about.
yeah, I think we are eons away from that, but
Yeah.
But no, sir, there's an interesting fact I've always wondered. I mean, as a layman, I mean, I think about probably seeking a therapist or taking help or whatever. But there is again another story of therapists. Your journey. So just it's very interesting for me in my head to understand when did you make that choice that what I want to become a therapist, and while you were doing it, did you face any social stigmas or how did that whole journey work out for you?
Right. So interestingly, I got into my college wanting to become a nutritionist.
Okay.
And I wanted to become the sports nutritionist for the Indian cricket team.
Wow. Nice.
And that's how it started. But when I joined my college,
Okay.
I had an amazing professor in psychology.
Do you want to name her
And
or
yeah,
him?
she was Neerja ma'am.
Okay.
And she was there in 11th standard. Sadly, she had to leave before I completed my junior college itself.
Okay.
But she and those lectures were incredibly fascinating for me, and that's when my interest in psychology peaked. And I was at that point itself, I was very certain that I want to get into, like, within a few months, I would say that I was very certain that psychology is where I want to see myself investing my time and effort into. But when I started my bachelor's program, I was still a little unclear about do I want to get into therapy. I just knew at that point I knew that I want to work with people.
Okay.
But I also had this understanding out of nowhere that I would fit into the corporate world better. So I started doing internships in HR to see if I'll fit in there.
Okay.
But didn't work out for me. And
I'm happy that it didn't work out.
Oh, super happy, because I don't want to attack any people in HR directly.
HRs. Even people outside the organization are attacking you.
But I feel like there's so much that you can do with considering how much potential humans have. It's not just about organizing things for people or, just keeping up their morale, but there's so much more that you can do to take care of humans. There is, I think, like a unlimited amount of potential that people can make use of. But sadly, it gets stuck into the 9 to 5 system, and people don't have the energy. It's like constant long-term stress, burnout. So when I saw all of this during my internship, I felt like I want to help the people at the other side of it. Like, what can I do to help people when they go through these systems? It's a very systemic problem. It's not just the HR department that is responsible for this. So, and that point, after my internship, I decided that I want to get into psychology in a more helping profession sort of way. So I got out of the organizational understanding of it. And then I got into counseling. Okay. And so counseling, my course, interestingly, it's not counseling psychology. I didn't get trained in it. I did my bachelor's and master's in human development. So human development is like a sister's field of psychology. Not many colleges offering it. I'm very glad I got into the college that I did.
Which college was this?
Nirmala Niketan College of Home Science.
Nirmala Niketan represent.
I'm super proud to belong to that institution. I have had amazing professors and friends, So it's a whole community that I have over there. And I studied there for 8 years or so. Right from my junior college, I was there. So when I started doing my bachelor's in human development, it's a more lifespan oriented course. We study everything that psychology students do. I think it focuses on holistic development much more than psychology courses do. Uh,
Big trigger here. Yo.
but but it's there's a lot of focus on research on how to be creative with thought and how to have a scientific orientation towards studying more in the field. And yeah, that's how. And then I went on to, so along with my bachelor's program in my final year, I just happened to get very lucky. My college was offering a course in arts-based therapy. I got trained along with my bachelor's program in arts-based therapy. So we use all modalities of art, like let's say painting, music, movement, drama, games. All of this in the context of healing, in the context of mental health and other aspects of our overall wellness. And it goes alongside talking about whatever the challenges are, or just whatever life is about for two people. And I think why I find this, there are many approaches to therapy, and very often people try to learn one particular method or approach in more depth, so that becomes their main approach to therapy.
Right.
So talking about it is helpful. From that perspective, if we understand one particular, let's say, a paradigm in therapy, it helps. So for me, arts, I believe that therapy doesn't have to be a sad, heavy, space all the time. You can bring in the element of fun and play into the space, and arts help there.
Right. So that's very interesting because I do have some friends of mine. Like I told you earlier, there was a phase where I was seriously considering therapy, and like many of them, I backed out eventually. But what I saw is I have some friends of mine who are into arts-based therapy, like you said, movement and dance and paintings, and So, as a person, as a layman, I just want to understand. It's so difficult to now to choose. Where do I go about? Because earlier, if you see 10 years back or 20 years back, probably nobody was talking about therapy so much as they are right now. I think today every second person is talking about therapy, which is also the reason I feel there is a lot of misinformation out there.
True.
So as a person who is genuinely wanting to seek one, where do I go? How do I understand this is where I'm supposed to go?
That's a very good question. I think in terms of see, when you say that there are many approaches to therapy, like there are movement therapists and things like that, we need to understand what sort of therapy they are offering. Okay, like આજકલ after any word you can put the word therapy, and that is considered to be a sort of help. But when we talk about it in the context of mental health, we need to understand that we are trying to focus on nurturing a person's life, trying to understand them from the emotional, psychological sense in much more depth, and then bring them to a better place than that they are.
Right, but that's again from your perspective.
Right.
From a therapist's perspective. Or from a seeker's perspective.
Yeah.
What would you suggest a person, like, try out a method like this to understand this is what you need or this is right for you?
Right. So it depends on if you have any particular interests. Okay, like if you like, let's say, dance. Okay, and if you feel like that is a way in which you already can express yourself well, then it will be ideal to try a dance movement therapist. Okay, but first it's very important that you ask them about their qualifications. It's not offensive in any way. It is just making an informed decision. When you are trying to seek help, it's very important to understand if the person is qualified to do that. And when I say qualified, the person needs to have at least a master's degree in psychology related fields and the specializations. So as therapists, we are also continuously working on our professional development. We are constantly doing different courses to understand what are the developments in the field. And you can't just mellow down, you can't just settle in with whatever you have studied already, you know. So
Right.
it's very important today, in today's time, especially with the influence of social media being so intense in our lives. Anybody is a therapist.
Yeah, no.
Like if I'm good at talking, if I'm good at giving advice to people, then I automatically consider myself to be
Yeah.
a therapist.
I had a friend, okay? I mean, he's good at talking and he does not have a, I know he does not have a qualification in terms of it, but he calls himself a life coach and, he guides people through and he has people who are, actually booking sessions with him. I mean, I personally find that very questionable, but
Yeah.
this is happening. So,
Yeah, it's sadly very, very prevalent. And as you said, there are different words with which these services are sold. Like just talk to me.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just a listening buddy
Right.
or life coach. All of these are terms that are popping up, but it's very important to not mix this up with what psychological help is, therapeutic help is. It's very people who are in the field go through years of training, formal education wise, and they're continuing to get trained in it. So it's not that anybody's born a therapist,
Right.
So बहुत मेहनत करना पड़ता है.
Of course, man. I mean, I can't even imagine. So, so this was one thing. And एक और एक चीज जो मैंने notice किया. So I've also had friends who've undergone therapy.
Yeah.
And the most common thing that I've heard from them is that so they've picked a therapist, okay? They've gone through that process of explaining their issues or, like really khujana apne issues ko and, going through the uncomfortable phase and then realizing that, yeah, probably this therapist is not the right fix for me.
Yeah.
Then they change the person, then they seek for another therapist, then go through that entire process once again.
Right.
And I've even had friends who've done this 3, 4, or even 5 times to finally find the right fix. So, do you think that process, first, it's very uncomfortable? One, for the person who is needing the help,
Right.
he's monetarily investing in that whole process
Yeah.
and is not getting anything probably at the end. Third, there is a very high chance that he will give up or she will give up
True.
through the process. So, do you think that's an area of this industry that needs to be worked upon or has to be streamlined?
Absolutely. So finding the right fit in a therapist is something that many people have a challenge with. I myself have been there. And I think what matters is first as I said, some things that you can do to make sure that you are in a good space, like with in terms of fit with the therapist, is that you first ask them their qualification. That's very important, so that you know that you're not talking to somebody just like that. So in being informed with your decision is extremely important. You can ask, how many years of experience do you have? Have you worked with these sort of challenges before? And ideally, in the field, you're not supposed to give advice to anybody. It's not about asserting your control over somebody's life and trying to dictate how they should be living. It's about empowering someone to make their own decisions, right? So if you feel in the first initial few sessions itself that this person is giving a lot of advice ki ye karo, ye mat karo, all of that, it's not a very good place to be in, right? So sadly, it does take a lot of time, and this happens more so when people are not fully informed about how to get into the whole process in the first place.
Right.
There are many things to consider. Your budget needs to be considered. Currently, therapy is such a space where it's very expensive. It is considered to be some sort of a luxury, like, to be able to afford it. That also happens a lot because we don't have the support through like government organizations or anything backing up. So it becomes a challenge, and this is, I have had people ask me, even doctors don't charge as much
Right.
for consultations like this. But we need to understand that the doctors, whatever is their consultation fee, you are talking to them for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, right? But a therapy session very often lasts for like at least 45 minutes to 1 hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes or so. And the fee that you charge for the therapy session, the therapist is not just showing up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's about
I'm a
it's
therapist.
about
Give me your money.
it's about a lot of years of effort continuously, and our courses are not cheap, and if we continuously need to be in the field, study more and more, it requires a certain kind of
Yeah, yeah.
investment.
I mean, it's that same circle where, and that is probably why it's called a luxury, I guess.
Yeah,
You know.
right. So
So
we are part of the system as much as
yeah,
others are.
others are. And if I look at it a very professional level only, does it happen that होता है ना कि एक ऑफिस में टीएल है जो 10 साल से काम कर रहा है एंड इज लाइक कि अरे क्या कल के बच्चे आके समझा रहे एंड दे गो अबाउट विद देयर टीममेट्स लाइक आई विल टेल यू व्हाट टू डू बेटर चल 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 like does it happen with therapists like after probably does it happen that you met any senior therapist and that's how they conduct sessions or have that attitude or build perspectives because
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, it's sometimes when you are you are married to a field for so many years, you will feel like you know everything about it. It's but I think that's a very personal process, again a personal challenge itself. At least the seniors that I know in the field are people who are very humble by nature and would like to continuously improve their professional skills as well. So in by itself, in the field, I see that there are people who prioritize investing themselves in continuous development so that they don't have these personal biases
right
of trying to put down younger therapists or trying to put down younger clients. This is life, ये चलता है,
yeah
तुम्हारे
yeah
एज में ये होता है.
generalizing huh
Those sort of things don't happen because you're constantly refreshing your professional skills all the time.
So, as a new therapist, I mean, ऐसा होता है क्या? मतलब we all grow up with our own biases,
Right.
right, and conditionings.
True.
So, to become that person eventually who is going to help out somebody, how often do you see your own biases and acknowledging your own biases? How much of a battle is that for your own self?
It is. It is. It's a challenge that pops up every other day. Especially because we talk to a range of people having different sort of problems, and very often those challenges may conflict with my moral understanding of how life is. But then it's also about being very conscious that why am I here, asking myself this question multiple times a day. Am I here to teach them my morals? Am I a teacher, or am I somebody who wishes to see them develop in their understanding of what life is, probably help them cope in better ways than they are currently dealing with right now.
Right.
And that would mean that I don't invent certain practices out of nowhere. I use research based,
Yeah.
science
Getting too creative.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that creativity is absent in the field. Okay, it's very important. Like books will give you information, but how you put it into practice is your skill.
Right.
Right. So it is an art also. Therapy, even though psychology is a science, being a therapist is an art by itself.
Yeah.
So it's challenging, but I think this a lot of self reflection needs to come into the picture. Even like I have had times where I have spoken to a client, and upon reflection I have felt that I feel like I put in too much of myself there, like my understanding about life or things like that. So I've gone the next session and I've told them, I feel like, I may have intervened in a unhelpful way or
Yeah, yeah.
unnecessary way. But this is what I meant when I wanted to say
Right,
this.
right.
But feel free to, think more about what you think about it and then take a decision or an action out of it.
Samjho.
So yes, personal biases come in all the time, and that's another important thing is you need to be in therapy yourself to
Right.
help the people in a more
Man,
better way.
that's like another therapist for therapists.
Yeah, it's a
Like it's
chain.
like
Every
therapist for
therapist,
therapists for therapists.
it is.
It's just never ending.
It is. And
Oh
I think
god.
it needs to be that way because
This
otherwise.
industry is self-sustaining now.
It is.
Therapists are paying for therapists now. So
It's
yeah,
important
yeah,
also.
obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
just taking a jab.
Yeah. So,
And now again, one more thing that people often talk about is you hear a lot of people saying that I'm depressed. Like to be honest, like मेरे को टीम में कभी-कभी लोग छुट्टी लेते हैं saying that I am very depressed today. I can't make it to work. So this is one thing, but I don't really know how to react to that. I just see कितने छुट्टी बचे and accordingly approve.
yeah.
But the point is that this, is there a difference between being sad and being depressed? And if there is, how would you explain that?
Right. Of course, there's a big difference between being sad and being depressed. So, sadness is a part of human experience. Okay, like everybody is sad sometime or the other. Depression, on the other hand, is um, very intense. It needs to last for a certain significant amount of time for it to be considered as a disorder. Okay, like it's a mood disorder, it comes under that classification. And the time matters, the intensity matters, like how severely I feel it, how significantly it's impacting other areas of my life. Like I'm not able to do my daily chores, I'm not able to sustain my social life with people, I'm not able to talk to anyone, maintain relationships, maintain my finances, have intimate relationships with people. And everything about your day to day life gets significantly impacted for days, weeks, months together. People even live in depression for several years, without feeling like, it is, they are meant to cope with it by themselves. It's not true. If help is available, you can access it. But the problem right now is that people are loosely using these words. Like as you said, if I'm not feeling that great on a particular day, for whatever reason, I may have had a fight, I may have, it's raining very heavily, and for whatever reason, that is not being depressed. Okay, I may be very upset, disappointed, angry, sad. That's the reason I think our emotional vocabulary needs to expand, and that's where schools come into the picture. How value education is taught to us.
Value education, my god.
That used to be
This
like a
free
halka
period.
fulka.
Time pass. This is
Right.
VE. And the thinnest book in the bag was value education.
Right.
Yeah?
All of us saw it that way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's a chill day then if we have
Yeah, yeah.
one. So it's,
Even the teachers were like, hey, value
yeah.
education.
And any teacher would teach
Anybody,
you
it's like
value
a part time.
education.
Who's free right now? Come teach value
Right.
education. Go for it.
Right. And that's very sad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we are a generation of people who have come out of
The-
that sort of system. So it's very important that, under value education, this sort of like, to use emotional vocabulary. For that, you have to be self aware a little bit, to understand how significantly do I feel this feeling. How many days has it been that I'm feeling this way? Am I not able to connect with somebody else because I'm feeling this way? These observations will lead you to understand, whether is it sadness, is it passing away with time a little bit? If I'm doing some changes in my day to day routine, is it shifting? Am I starting to feel a little better?
But do you think overthinking can also be a part of it that magnifies the whole thing? Like I could really feel like I'm not able to connect with people for a long time, this, that, and probably there's something else that I'm just overthinking about. And again, I've made myself believe that I'm depressed, probably, or
Mm. So a person can only make themselves believe that they are depressed if they are not able to cope with their current life challenges, right? Like it's it has to be that significant for them to
Yeah,
feel,
makes sense.
uh, you know. But in today's time, we need to understand that there are so many problems, that many people are facing mental health challenges. So even though it seems to be happening to every second person, it is true also.
Yeah.
So we don't want to say, अरे इसको क्या problem होगा life में, this person is, let's say, rich or has the best job ever, has a family that supports, why will this person be depressed? There are many causes for depression, and this doesn't have to be just based on the life that you have on your Instagram page.
Right.
you know.
Right.
So it's so much more than that. There are hereditary causes for it, there are lifestyle causes for it, so many other reasons that are contributing to a person becoming depressed.
Depressed.
So
Do you see do you see, I mean, as a therapist again, because I feel like it's like this, I have a draw for, I'm not telling you types. I have that feeling. If you are a therapist, right? I have a draw for, I'm not telling you. Like, I'm seeing you. You're in a casual setting and people are talking and, they're explaining their views.
yeah.
Like, now I know that you're a therapist, so I'll probably think twice sometimes. Like, I think I have to be like, Isa. But do you see men often, because I feel like a lot of times I have had this conversation with different people, and usually I've seen men react to this topic differently in numbers in comparison to women that I've spoken to. Like every time I've spoken to women, the amount of people who consider it's important, or it should be, uh, it should be something that's considered, is a lot more. When I talk to men, I have heard a lot more responses like, you know what, my life does not allow me to do this. I can't do this. There is the amount of things that I have to take care of, etc., etc. Just life in general is so intense. And since I've spoken to equal number of people, both men and women, and this was my answer, I was wondering that, is it a thing? Like,
um, in it could be.
hmm,
I think in terms of, as I said, we have to understand this from as a contextualized thing. So which would mean that I see why men are being aversive to talking about mental health or their personal challenges. It's because, see, right from a very young age, men are told, little boys are told to be a certain way, and little girls are told to be a certain way. So, like, boys don't cry, don't cry like a girl, as if crying is
that's
meant
like,
for
yeah, for girls,
girls.
yeah.
You crying is seen as a sign of weakness, that you're not able to deal with your problems. There's a lot of pressure on men and also on young boys to provide for the family, to protect the family. So this is the orientation that children get right from a young age. That
I think it's devoid of economic backgrounds.
yeah. That is how it's a very cultural
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So we even have festivals. It's good that you celebrate festivals, but something like Raksha Bandhan, it is like promoting that a brother has to take care of the sister. But we can also emphasize that it can go the other way. It's about
Exactly.
maintaining that relationship
Balance,
and
yeah.
strengthening it.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be reinforced to the boy that you have to take care of all the women in your life?
Right.
So it's, and that right from that age, a small little boy is getting rakhis on his hand, and the message that goes into his head is that I am responsible to all these women.
And it's like physically on your hand the whole
Right.
time. It keeps reminding you the fact that, this
Right.
is what you have to do. Yeah.
Exactly. So as the person grows, the message still continues to get reinforced that I am responsible for taking care of others. I can't be the one who takes a break from that,
Right.
or perceives it in a different light.
Right.
That people can take care of me also. I deserve to be taken care of. So a lot of being masculine is not supported by emotional well-being,
Right.
sadly. right now.
Sadly.
But I see a shift in how like men are also seeking therapy, men are going for psychiatric help, which is a good change.
Yeah. Lot of times it's not just I think therapy, in life in general we expect like instant gratification in life, right? मैंने कुछ किया अभी एंड मेरे को उसका रिस्पॉन्स अभी क्या भी चाहिए, फील गुड फैक्टर अब भी चाहिए, फोटो डाला 200 लाइक चाहिए, वीडियो डाला 200 लोग देखना है, कम से कम 500 लोग 1000 लोग लाइक वाइक करना है, सब्सक्राइब करना है, इंस्टेंट ग्रेटिफिकेशन चाहिए, तो वो नहीं होता है. So in your case, like when you're dealing with people and their issues, and this is something that of course takes a lot of time.
Right.
So have you met people who are very impatient? Like, why is this not working? Like, and like, if a person has to go for a therapy session, he expects that it has to be cured instantly.
Right.
And what would be your response to that?
Right. So I think I have been there on the other side as a client.
Wow.
Trying to be very patient with my journey. But so I understand this as a concern for many people. In terms of how I go about dealing with this is that right at the intro call or at the first session itself, I set out expectations, okay? Like what are my expectations from you as a client and what are your expectations from me as your therapist? And one of the things, if the client brings it up, how long will this take? So that's one very popular
How
question.
long will this take?
Yeah. Does this ever end?
Oh, God.
So I just straight out say, I do not know. I cannot tell you that within 6 sessions you will be, perfect.
सब चंगा सी आप ठीक हो अभी.
There are, many of these life coaching interventions and stuff like that. They will have this sort of, it's a way to sell a service, market a service. So they will say that, a 10 session package, get into, we'll focus on these things.
Yeah.
And some people get some benefit out of it. But in therapy, especially if you are focusing on depth oriented work, insight oriented work, there is no set limit that we can put in right at the start. So usually how it works is, so I tell the client right at the first session or at the intro call that I do not know how long this will take. So one expectation that I have from you is to be try and patient with the journey, be patient with the journey. That's one thing. But also eventually once you start feeling better, like you feel like managing emotions has become much more better than earlier. You are able to build social connections, jiske saath you are able to have quality relationships, that it feels like you're able to live life more comfortably now. Even on bad days you're able to help yourself cope with that feeling. Then we eventually reduce the number of sessions. We wean out of the process. Like if you're meeting once every week, then we go to twice a month, once a month, and then upon need basis.
Right.
So we slowly get out of the process like that. So how long does it take?
Getting it. Okay. And so of course, like we've discussed this earlier also, like, there was this small video I remember, like there was this therapy dog was just lying there, like, like bus ho gaya meko. So do you have those moments?
Oh yes. I don't think we can escape that part of our job. It is a job. So exhaustion happens, and especially I think more so if you look at it from the context again, then this happens because there are not enough therapists.
Right.
So every therapist feels overworked at some point, because we want to help as many people as we can. We want to offer some sliding scale sessions if possible, if we are open to that idea. Sliding scale would mean that you pay what you can within a range, not full fee maybe. So people are trying to be as accessible as possible, make therapy as accessible as possible. And all of this eventually being overworked, like any other professional, therapists also get what to say, exhausted.
Right. Burnt out.
And that's where we need to ensure that we have our practices in place. All sort of like going to therapy ourselves, having daily practices like exercise, have mental health care practices. Um, Make sure that you are around good circles as much as possible. It's also important to understand what is your bandwidth right now. Are you able to see these many number of clients every day or every week? If not, you need to cut short, because then your quality of work will get
Affected.
disturbed.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, and there are days when we are also humans, even though we have professional training, it doesn't mean that we are immune to pain and suffering, right? So we don't there are days when we talk to some people and the challenges that they have gone through life are so intense, so painful, so disturbing, that there are at the end of the session, or at the end of the day, we are just like, I feel very inspired on some days that how can people go through
Make
all
it
of
through, and
this
yeah.
and still want to see hope for themselves in their life. So that's one side of it, but the other side is feeling exhausted because we share a part of ourselves in every session, and that exchange of energy, it can get very intense on some days. So yeah, we have those days where we are completely out,
That's when a therapist goes back to its basics.
yes.
Sitting in front of a mirror and talking to yourself.
Yes.
Do you do that?
We can do this.
Yeah.
We'll get through this day.
Have you ever had? Have you seen the show Never Have I Ever
Yeah.
on Netflix?
Yep.
I love what Devi and that her therapist
Wow.
has.
Yeah.
So comfortable, and have you
Yeah.
had a
Yeah.
rapport like that with any of your?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is how it needs to be also. That show has a fair depiction of therapy,
Yeah. No.
more or less. I think it's unlike many other shows and movies that
Do you
have.
judge shows that propagate
Oh,
therapy?
yes.
Yeah.
It's very important because these are initiatives also in some way.
Right.
When you show a person seeking therapy in a movie or a series, all the people who watch that series,
Are getting influenced.
yeah, and they are getting an idea of what it is like to be in therapy.
Right.
So if you do a bad description of what it is like, then people are going to get into therapy with that assumption,
Exactly.
which is extremely unhelpful. And when they get into therapy, it's like, this is not what that movie showed me.
Exactly. Which is that one movie
Yeah.
that you would probably say do not form your opinion on?
Dear Zindagi.
I knew it. I had that in my mind. I had that in my mind.
Maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a very loose depiction of
Yeah, no?
what therapy is.
Yeah. Shah Rukh Khan
Yeah.
fans. Myself one, but I was not. I found that movie. I had a similar view of that movie too.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Right.
that's that. And so I think that now we can start wrapping and finishing it. Yeah. Now, so there is this one most interesting. I've always been very intrigued to know. Do friends around you walk on eggshells because you're a therapist?
I don't. Then that would be my quality as a friend that's coming into the picture if I'm not able to.
What a
make them-
therapistical answer. Okay.
That's true, but yes, I mean, earlier and all, I used to have this, can you read my mind now? What am I
Yeah.
thinking now? So those sort of questions used to come
Yeah.
very frequently, especially when I was a student itself.
Right.
And I would pester. We would have researches and tests. We were learning how to do psychological tests and stuff. So I would make many of my friends as guinea pigs. Please
Yeah,
fill this
no?
out.
Oh,
for me
I've been
and-
there, done that. I have been a subject for many of these tests,
Right.
and I used to get a dairy milk after that.
I never gave anybody.
What?
anything.
There used to be this wall like this, a board, and she used to sit on the other side,
Okay.
and she used to ask me a lot of questions, and she used to like I
Ah.
used to answer accordingly,
Right.
and then she would make some diagnosis about it, and
Right.
fun times.
So while we are in that process of learning, right? Friends would feel, hey, मेरे में कुछ problem है क्या आया result and that sort of thing. And once you finish with at that point I would say, I'm a student, I'm just learning, I don't know what the end result is about. And I'll try to, get back to them at a later point and things like that. But once I started working in the field, this thing would happen very frequently. Can you read my mind? Can you tell what I'm thinking? Therapy has nothing to do with any of that.
Exactly right.
And in terms of ethics in the profession, we are not even supposed to work with people who we know, that family, friends.
Because you'll have your bias.
Right. And that's one important thing. So people would, like friends would, can you be my therapist? And when I say no, there will be like a lot of what to say, sudden
backlash.
Yeah. Like, you can help everybody.
Yeah, but not
your own people. So it's not about.
If I were a friend, like a friend with a therapist, I would always like speak my mind out and then be like, or is it? Or is it? Leave some wiggle room there to correct me.
So that's, I think, so people would come in that way, like, be my therapist, or people would expect, to hear them out. I'm open to doing that as a friend, but don't ask me to intervene professionally.
Right.
So I would just give out a reference of a colleague, like, talk to this person, about this. This is how much I can help you. So now I think
after this I charge. This was the free trial.
So there was this very interesting, what to say, my cousins and I would just chill and hang. We were talking, and you get talking about certain things in depth. And sometimes I'm very into it, but sometimes I'm like, I don't have the energy for this. I'm here to chill right now. Don't bring something intense up right now. So one of these days, my cousin is like, ऐसा लग रहा है क्या मैं फ्री का थेरेपी ले रहा हूँ. So I'm like, I don't want to get into this. There are days
मेरे शक्तियों का गलत इस्तेमाल हो रहा है.
It's exactly like that. So it's just, I think now that I'm in the field since some years, I think people around me have started understanding what my boundaries are, because I've set them that way. That don't get me dragged into this way too much. I will help you only till this point. I will refer you to somebody else beyond this.
And I think you also, with time and experience, get more stern, and it becomes easier with time to explain it to people, like,
Right.
I'm sure earlier you would beat around the bush a lot more to let them know and not be rude enough or being straightforward. But now we'll be like, ab main bol sakti hu types, right?
Yeah, I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Recovering people pleaser, nice.
So I've had my journey of becoming better. I don't still think I'm quite there yet. But yes, assertiveness is a skill that comes with practice.
Right.
So, yeah, slowly.
Nice. All right, Aathira, this was, is it double A Tira or A Tira?
No, double A-T-A.
Double A, Aathira.
Yes.
Proper Mallu name. So, Aathira, this was such a treat speaking to you, man.
Thank
mean, I'll be honest. I had a free session of therapy today. Finally, a freeloader.
It wasn't therapy. This was a conversation.
It did feel like that, though, I tried to sneak in a few of my own personal issues there to understand and see what, I'm a freeloader, so but this was such a nice conversation, dude. I mean, we really enjoyed it, and I hope you had fun.
Yes.
And you were comfortable through the process.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming down all the way from Kharghar to Kalyan for this shoot. And, a big thanks to Aditya here. This is Mithara Cafe. And, they've been so generous enough to give us this space and, let us host this podcast. Mithara Cafe in Kalyan. So they're a health-based place where they give out a lot of healthy diets and courses for y'all. So do consult, especially if you're around Kalyan and Dombivli. Very great place, very nice ambience. Do come down over here, guys. Also, this is Aathira. If you've seen the whole episode, assuming you have seen the whole episode by now, This is Aathira here, a phenomenal therapist, and so nice speaking to her. So if you want to reach out to her or want to seek help in terms of mental health and for more details, do contact Aathira. We will be putting tagging her on this video, putting down links for her profile so that you can go out, check her out. Do speak to her. And of course, this conversation could have gone forever. I mean, there were so many things that we could have discussed about, but we've tried to wrap it down in a nutshell because you guys have the memory span of a whatever. But but do watch the whole episode, guys. This is we personally had a lot of fun doing it. Big thanks to Dhruv for coming down, shooting for us, very last moment. And these episodes of ours, in terms of podcast and open mic, only happen because of friends that take their time off for us. We don't pay anybody. So, so big thanks to Dhruv, and big thanks to Abhishek, who's lended the camera to us today. Who's lent the camera to us, and we're shooting. But yeah, that's the whole vibe of this scene. Thank you so much, guys,
Kuch
and
Kartey
we'll see
Bro.
you.